I think that when somebody gets pulled over for a DUI, there's obviously going to be unfamiliar territory for them. Most people are being pulled over for the first time for something as serious as a DUI, and it'll probably be the only time that they have interaction with law enforcement for something of that level of severity. What I think that people should know is, first and foremost, when you're interacting with a police officer, you do not have an obligation to participate in any field sobriety tests or breathalyzer tests or anything of that nature if you elect not to. In Maryland, we do not have separate criminal charges the way that many other states do for not cooperating with a police officer's requests for participation in tests or answering their questions or doing a breath sample or something along those lines. People often feel misled by police officers or information that they hear in the media about somehow being penalized criminally for not participating in those tests. What you should know is that there is not a criminal penalty for not doing that. And in fact, the majority of the times, I wish my clients would not have participated in those tests at all. It's sort of what I tell many of my clients when they ask me, what should I have done in retrospect? And I say, well, if you were going to take a test in any other subject that you thought there was a possibility you were going to fail, you probably wouldn't take it. And the same goes for a situation like this one. The second thing that I think that people should know is that even though you may not be happy with what's happening to you during the course of your interaction with police officers, it's still a good idea to be polite to them. It's not required, but I can't tell you the number of times that I've had police officers show up and a judge asks them point blank, was this person that you pulled over polite and cooperative when you interacted with them that day on the side of the road? And it helps a lot if the officer says, yes, Your Honor, they were polite and cooperative with me. That doesn't mean they did everything that I said. That doesn't mean that they responded to all of my questions. But at the very least, they weren't interacting with me in a hostile or violent way that made me as a police officer concerned for my safety or my well-being. You can imagine that a judge would appreciate that far more than hearing a report, violence, threats, things of that nature that were coming from a person that had been pulled over. And the third thing, and probably the most important thing that I would tell somebody is, if you do get charged with a DUI, don't wait to call an attorney. There are so many things that need to be done that are time sensitive when it comes to a DUI, such as requesting certain hearings, whether that's through the MVA or with respect to citations that you receive from the police officer on the side of the road, beginning to participate in alcohol education classes, and really a number of other collateral issues that could be changing on an individual basis, depending, for example, on what you do for a living, or whether or not you're a student, or what your immigration status is within the country. The longer you delay in talking to an attorney about how to handle some of those issues, the more likely it is that you'll miss something and perhaps even miss a window of time where you had an opportunity to address or correct one of those issues. So it's really important to make sure that you reach out to an attorney immediately after you've been charged, or even if you haven't been charged yet, but you know that a charge is coming. Sometimes there are delays in you receiving a charge if, for example, an officer is still investigating an incident or waiting for results of a blood test, for example. Nonetheless, just because you haven't received a charge under those circumstances doesn't mean you should delay in reaching out to an attorney, at least finding out what your next steps should be with respect to handling the matter properly.